Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NCHL's virtual learning opportunity. We have with us today Joe Olszewski. My name is Jen Petit, and I am the Senior Manager for Leadership Programs with NCHL. I apologize for a little bit of delay. We had some technical issues, but we're all back on track. A few housekeeping items that we just want to make sure that you're aware of. We are recording this session, so it will be available in the next 2 to 3 days, both via email and on our YouTube channel. So be able to check it out after the fact and send it to folks in the organization. The other thing I want to note is that we are using closed captioning today. So that's available if that's an accessibility feature that you need to access. It's in the bottom menu of your Zoom there. And then lastly, our Q&A is taking place in that Q&A section in your Zoom menu as well. So we'll kind of be monitoring that throughout the presentation and answering those questions along the way, but we'll also have some time at the end to connect with Joe as well. But Joe Olszewski is Principal of Value and Strategy with Cornerstone, and he has over 10 years of experience as a strategic thinker. He comes from the education background as well and embodies a lot of the mindset that everyone can gain new skills and realize their full potential. And Joe is based in Chicago, Illinois, and has an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management. So Joe, I will pass it off to you.
Jen, thanks so much for the introduction. Hi, everybody. Again, thanks for the slight delay trying to get everything up and running, but we've got it now. Like Jen mentioned, my name is Joe Olszewski. I'm the principal of strategy and advisory services here at Cornerstone, helping customers think through their talent strategy as it relates to an ever-changing world. And I'm really excited to dive a little deeper into recruiting from within, harnessing the power of skills and AI to drive employee retention. Let's see. I found this cartoon. I just thought it was a really good anchor around the patient wants a second opinion from an AI. This is a buzzword, right? Artificial intelligence is coming into our vernacular. It's coming into our day to day with the rise of ChatGPT, with organizations trying to make smarter business decisions. Artificial intelligence is here. It's here to stay, and it's going to continue to evolve. And it's going to require us as leaders in HR and within the healthcare space to be able to think through how can we apply artificial intelligence to our day-to-days to not just make our people better, but make our organizations stronger. And hopefully in this session, this presentation, you'll get a couple of nuggets around how can we begin thinking about how AI can make what our talent processes in our organization, ones in which employees can thrive, and that your organization is getting the right stuff out of your people power. Artificial intelligence has some very big superpowers, and there's a lot that people are going to be able to do as artificial intelligence continues to become more ingrained in our day to day. It's not AI is not just about it's not just about replicating and it's not like a search engine. It's not just a bunch of data. It's actually beginning to leverage and begin to act around like how humans think, right? It's about AI is going to help solve decision making. Or help with decision making. It's going to help with like workflow and processes and efficiencies, and it can learn things quickly and recognize objects and patterns with massive amounts of information. So, for example, HR managers can find find the perfect candidate for jobs, right? Like using artificial intelligence and that data. HR leaders can begin creating personalized training opportunities and career pathways. And it's very important given just healthcare in general and how we're consistently trying to find the right people and spending time filling open roles. Ultimately, it helps reduce costs by recruiting internally. So I want to ground us in that artificial intelligence isn't just about the technology we're employing. It's not just about perhaps the scientific, technological end of innovation, but it also can help us manage our people and make our organizations stronger. So let's focus on a couple of things today. We're going to identify we're going to focus on how artificial intelligence can identify skills and gaps. how it can help create career pathways, and how it can promote internal mobility. Again, with reducing costs. I want to focus on these three things, and while artificial intelligence is going to affect a lot of different parts of the business, a lot of different parts of leading a healthcare organization, right now, I think what we can begin to think through is what skills are you looking for as an organization? What skills do your employees have? And where is that gap? Helping you to be able to predict and anticipate the skills of the future and what you'll ultimately have to lean into and figure out as you move forward and as time moves on. Creating career pathways. We know employee engagement is coming out of this post-pandemic world and thriving, leaning into this AI, hybrid work. There's all these components within how employees experience their organization. And one way AI can be leveraged is through providing and developing and creating career pathways where employees can take what they know, what they're doing well, and grow into roles that you as an organization need. And finally, there's just promoting this internal mobility. We know it's really expensive to fill roles. We know that it's often challenging to bring in outside candidates and onboarding, and there's an expense and cost to that. Artificial intelligence can provide you a holistic view using data, right? Giving you the right analytical dashboard to ultimately look at your open roles and move the right people into those roles. Great. Jen, just really quick, is there any questions in the chat at the moment? Good, great. Oh, lovely. Keep it going. So let's talk a little bit about the why. Like, why do we want to focus here as leaders in our organization? Why do we want to focus this and how we, uh, think through how artificial intelligence can ultimately benefit our overall organizational design? And we ultimately can think about this through the employee development life cycle, right? We know that employees expect something out of their work environment. They want to be developed, right? They want to be able to assess opportunities. They want to be able to upskill themselves through training, right? They want to be able to stretch into new roles and gigs and upskill through training. They want to be able to have conversations and ultimately move through and create development opportunities where they can ultimately feel that what they're doing is not just rewarded, but providing value for the business. Um, a couple of things like around internal mobility. I thought these statistics were actually quite important, and also a little astounding. And I provide these for you because as you begin to think through these strategies, you might be bringing to your senior leaders, you might be, thinking about this on your own with your own teams. I always like to anchor things in a little bit of data so that we can really articulate not just what you're going to do, but the why behind it and how it's ultimately going to create a value clarity for you and your organization. So, the first is the cost of hiring externally. It's typically 1.5 to 2 times the salary of the position compared to more efficient internal moves. You're spending a lot, and especially in healthcare organizations, where when you think about patient care, where you want to focus dollars on, this is a place where we know it's costly when we don't have internal mobility or an internal mobility strategy in place. 47% of employees surveyed said that they would be more satisfied in their work if they had more opportunities to explore careers internally. Slightly less than half, but a very significant number, showing that engagement is very closely tied to how employees feel valued at their organization and how an organization is surfacing these opportunities for them, right? And especially, right now, engagement is across the board tends to trend down. Everyone's trying to figure and wrestle with this. One way to begin to think of, or begin to build a more engaged employee base is providing those opportunities and surfacing them the right way. 73% of workers today want to know about career opportunities inside their organizations. And employees who don't have visibility into internal career opportunities are nearly 3 times more likely to say they wouldn't be interested in other jobs at that company. And the big thing that we want to focus on too is that 74% of millennials and Gen Zers cited a lack of career mobility as the impetus for their plans to resign. And while we're all wrestling with this, it's important as we see this next work generation begin to come into the workforce. We want to make sure that we're actually meeting their needs and giving them what they expect. Excellent. So one thing we talk about is skill development, right? As AI further revolutionizes industries, organizations that adopt AI will be able to streamline how fast their employees learn, produce, and innovate. Sophisticated organizations have embraced and leveraged artificial intelligence to ultimately develop and deploy a skill strategy, in so that throughout the organization, in so that the what they're doing at their organization is based on what people are good at and what the organization actually needs, right? So that's incredibly important. A couple of ways that AI can actually help with this deploying a skill strategy is one, identifying skills. AI can recommend skills based on employee interests and experiences. Technology exists where employees can upload their resume and artificial intelligence can take those experience or what they've done and actually begin to pull out the skills that are relevant based on that resume. You might find at your organization if you have a highly certified population or you're using like observations with nursing staffs that based on that data and based on like what you've trained your model around can ultimately say, well, based on these performance reviews and based on these observations, we can say we have a very strong or we have a very high amount of blank skill, right? So there's opportunities to do that, and I definitely think that as you're exploring that, you should exploring all of this, that you should look into how AI can help you identify skills. Second, skill development. First step is always identifying skills. You have to know what you have at your organization, but you need to understand what you have, but maybe at a less proficient rate, right? Or skills that you need, right? You ultimately want to be able to leverage artificial intelligence to develop people in those skills. Imagine a world where instead of people trying to just self-select a bunch of training that they think they need, or you assigning training based on what you think they need, that it's actually tied to personalized skills that you know you want the employees to develop in and around. AI can curate content based on relevance and skill level. Now, I think another critical piece to this, right, is this gap analysis. A skilling strategy is only helpful if you understand what you have, what you need, and then that space between on what those gaps are. Because then you can begin to put it into practice around what might the strategy look like to close that gap, right? So, ideally, as an organization, what you identify as the skills that your organization has matches what you need currently and maybe in the future. So, it should be really close. But as people start, right, this gap analysis tends to be a little bit bigger because we just don't have the data yet. We don't have the development. But AI can help you determine what skills your organization has and what it will need for the future. And I think skilling and tying artificial intelligence into a skilling strategy helps to future proof your organization. As healthcare changes, as technology changes, as patients change, um, you need to kind of be a couple steps ahead and anticipate. All right, right now you might need X skill, but given where whether it be another generation, whether it be futuristic pharmaceuticals and or life sciences innovations, you might need different skills moving forward. So using artificial intelligence to close that gap as well. But yeah, artificial intelligence, the technology is available and you can use it to deploy and evolve and lean into a skilling strategy. Any questions so far? Looking good. think in the Q&A. Yeah, great. Thanks, Jen. AI can also be a powerful tool for creating career paths. And when I say, and specifically within healthcare organizations, right, by leveraging data and analytics to optimize talent management and development. And I want to talk about several ways that AI can be employed for this purpose. So, first, skills and competency mapping. AI can analyze the skills and competencies required for various roles within a healthcare organization. By assessing the current skills of employees, AI can identify gaps and suggest personalized training programs to bridge these gaps. Very much, I think what you might be seeing right now, right, is that career pathing and a skilling strategy are very closely aligned. So to kind of develop that career pathing, you need to have a skilling strategy in place. I see a comment in the chat. I just want to make sure it's not a question. I'd be more than happy to answer it if it is. You see it, Jen?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. Career recommendations. By processing data and employee performance, and historical career progressions, right? Like how a nurse might start in one unit, might move to a unit, might become a manager. Those progressions, AI can help provide personalized career path recommendations. This can help employees understand potential future roles and the steps that they need to achieve them. Predictive analytics. I think this is a critical tool, not just in career pathing, but in skilling and internal mobility. The data that artificial intelligence can ultimately provide is going to be one that's going to open a lot of doors. AI can predict future talent needs based on factors such as patient demographics, think technological advancements and healthcare trends. And this foresight will allow healthcare organizations to prepare career development programs aligned to those future requirements, right? Think about it. I feel like one of the phrases I hear a lot, it's we're building the ship as we're sailing it, right? And that can be so frustrating. I know it's a necessity often, but AI can help eliminate that by anticipating what our future needs might be. On succession planning, AI can assist in identifying high potential employees who are suitable for leadership roles. By analyzing again, historical data and using that historical data and performance metrics, AI can suggest candidates in succession planning and help design personalized development plans for them. Sometimes managers might uh, switch into different roles. There might be a promotion that happens when you think about internal mobility. That's why career pathing is really important to help with the succession planning. But also, you might be high retirement rates, right? All of these are going to be downward pressures requiring succession planning to be top of mind, very closely aligned to career pathing. Learning and development, AI can personalize learning and development programs based on, think, individual learning styles, career goals, competency levels, interests, right? Maybe there's someone who is working in maybe more of like a back office, finance maybe role, and maybe they want to move to more of analytics inside of more of like patient delivery, right? Like, but those skills might be similar, but they might want to develop into those skills as well. So creating learning development opportunities is really critical there. And it also just ensures that employees are continuously developing those skills that are aligned with their career aspirations and organizational needs. And so ultimately, you're giving people just this opportunity to grow within their roles. And then recruitment and onboarding. Again, like when we're thinking about what type of candidates we're bringing on and what our needs are, AI can streamline recruitment by matching candidates based on their skills levels to the right jobs, ensuring that there's a good fit from the outset, right? Like not having to invest so much in onboarding because you already have a clearer picture, a better idea, better data points to know this will be a good fit. During onboarding, AI can customize training again, accelerate new hires integration into the organizations, cutting onboarding time, again, as a cost saver. But overall, AI enables healthcare organizations to create dynamic, data driven career paths that are tailored to individual employees while aligning with organizational goals, ultimately leading to a more engaged and proficient workforce. Again, artificial intelligence, you have the skill strategy that it can begin to identify, close gaps, and develop, and then create career pathing using the data of your organization, past performance reviews, career progressions to ensure that what you're giving your employees not only is, improving their overall engagement, but also maximizing their value that they're bringing to your organization and addressing those business problems that you might have and will have in the future. Any questions around career pathing?
Joe, if I can be selfish, I do have a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Um, so NCHL's work is with the National Council on Administrative Fellowships. So we have graduate programs and fellowship sites that are kind of working together to create this pipeline of
Yeah.
teaching a student from uh, the formal education into these fellowship opportunities. But I'm wondering if you have seen or we're going to see an increase in the use of AI when it comes to this like career mapping and pathing in education spaces.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's what's interesting right now is that we're trying what I see, especially in education spaces, is that um, we're trying to figure out where to start, right? So it's definitely coming. And I think it's, when I advise customers and I talk to customers, it's don't boil the ocean, right? There are going to be 101 places to like dive in. And like, right, I've got what over 5 or 6 bullet points on this slide. And you might be saying, like, oh, we got to do this, or oh no, we got to figure this out. And like, or this is something I need to focus on. But in reality, you're not going to be able to do all these things at the same time, right? You've got to think about what are your short term, what are your intermediate, and what are your long term goals. And in places like in education, as you're connecting fellows and you're bringing like the right people to the right places, I really consider focusing on two things: skilling and learning and development. If you can begin to identify people's skills and then give them the tools to develop into the skills that maybe they want to, right? They want to develop,
Right.
that's a huge win. And one thing, sometimes you get pushback around how do you know if people have the skill, right? Like on LinkedIn, you'll go and you'll say that you'll self-report essentially, right? And sometimes people, especially in education, right? Like even if it's like certification, or maybe it's like a program completion, or even like a degree program, we're a little hesitant to have people self-report on those skills. And my advice would be let them. Let people self-report on skills. You're gonna know when someone is maybe stretching a skill that they have,
Mhm.
but let them self-report. Where you then work down is then creating opportunities to develop proficiency, beginner, intermediate, advanced. Have people report like I am a beginner. Perhaps it's a programmer, right? Like I am a beginner at this skill of like using SQL. But I'm more intermediate when it comes to XYZ, right? Like yeah, giving people it requires a little bit on our end to trust a little bit more, right? As we begin to figure it out. And I think like as we think about artificial intelligence in general, uh the way like when I talk about it in terms of like career pathing, skilling, and then into internal mobility, there's a sense of empathy that you need to like bring along with it, and that level of trust you need to like develop to like help making sure AI is working for you and you're not just turning it on to turn it on because it's a buzzword. Does that, Jen? What are your thoughts there?
No,
Does that make
definitely.
sense?
No, definitely. And I also think that if you're looking from like a graduate program perspective, with creating these students that are going into the workforce, how are they using this skills mapping to find those gaps, like you were saying before, gap analysis and finding ways to
Yep.
get them, you know, ready to enter the workforce versus 10 steps behind. I think that's going to be,
Yep.
my brain is just, the wheels are just spinning with
Yeah. And
opportunity there. Yeah.
you kind of have to think through you have no, you don't kind of. You have to understand the vision and direction of your organization you're working with or that you want to work with. And you also need to understand, frame it in terms of a business problem. What is a problem that you're looking to solve? And allowing you to do that then just makes it a little the thinking a little bit smarter. And like when you're solving a problem, people tend to feel you get more buy-in around it as well. Yeah. It's like twofold, right? Like you got this there's a very this is a way to think this is strategic thinking around talent management processes you're already thinking about in like as leaders, right? And now it's bringing AI to do the heavy lifting, but you still have to do the strategic thinking and making sure it's all connecting.
There's a balance there, right?
There's total balance, total balance. Yep.
Balance. We do have a question that came through the
Yeah.
chat, if you don't
Go
mind.
for it. Yeah, I'd
Um,
love to answer it.
one of our attendees says, we know that people do not always self-assess in objective ways. Men tend to over-report skill levels while women under-report. How can AI help flush this out without having to test people's skill levels?
Yeah, there is definitely an underreporting based on with a gender gap, and like that's aware. I think as models get a little bit better, that you're going to begin to be able to see that. But by relying on AI, you're tending to eliminate that bias a little bit more. And I think what you again, this comes to like the empathy level and like that comment, the human lens you do need to keep an eye on as well. Um, is making sure that you're getting equal distribution from all of your employees putting in these skills. And then you got to bring in this human component, right? Skilling doesn't just stop at reporting it on your LinkedIn profile or, in your Cornerstone system or whatever it might be. Managers have to have conversations, right? And you still have to do that anti-bias training with your managers so that the conversation is when you're talking about proficiency for managers to be able to kind of address it as well and like begin to um, make sure people are assessing the right way, right? You're either bringing down, you got to normalize that rubric a little bit, and you're going to see that pull. But I do think it's going to require a managerial level um, to be able to address some of those concerns and biases because you got to kind of bring the human element into it because you know bias exists. AI can hallucinate. We want to make sure that we're asking ourselves. I just want to say that though, that's such a smart question, and I think it's something that needs to continue to be brought up. In addition to that, right, another way to help do to begin to mitigate this, right? Because this is like now we're talking about like cultural changes. We're like change managing a way we think. Um, based on lines of difference. And what I've seen work really well is like leveraging peer support and 360 reviews. Like have your peers begin to say like, "Hey, you're good at this, right? You're good at this." And when people begin to validate, then you begin to see like you begin to see like more accurate reporting too. So self-validation works. Do not stray away from it, but it is important to like bring in the manager conversations, through development conversations, through check-ins, and then also like bringing in this like my peers, like what do they think? What are the people I'm interacting think that are my skills? Because you do want to like close that gap when possible.
Sure.
No problem. Anything else in the chat? Any other questions?
We do have another one actually.
I love
Are users the same understanding of definition of skills? And does that matter with AI? So thinking about like the definition of a skill and how is
Oh,
AI taking that into account across, my definition versus yours or the next person.
yeah. I think that that's a very that's a important consideration. What I'm finding in the technology that I've been using and I've seen is that it's pretty standard. Like skills are, tend to be things that someone can know and do, right? At the basic level. I think where it does get trickery is like then you might move into like capabilities, like what are people able to do at a certain level. And then you have like competencies, like what are they required to do and what at what level are they able to do that. I'm not afraid of like the AI not understanding that. I think us, right, as the leaders who are having these conversations and playing a role in making this work for others, that we kind of need to iron that out. And it depends on the business. Like I've seen organizations focus quick, like very much on competencies and um, capabilities, and they don't want to move away from that. Sometimes it's really important in a healthcare setting to be competent in these in certain things that you need to measure because it relates directly to patient care or relates directly to the setting that you're working in. That doesn't mean you're not starting from anywhere, right? Competencies are, in my mind, how I look at a competency is if I'm competent in something, and I'm meeting the requirements of the competency that's laid out for me, what are the skills that I need to be able to do that competency, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's where it's important to kind of work backwards. I think of, and just for people on the call, like, when you think about skills, I think about them as a pyramid, right? Okay. You've got the base of the pyramid, and the base are your core skills. These are the skills that at your organization you say, like, I need everyone to have them. Like, these are just basic. And it might be like effective communication, project planning, time management, whatever, right? It might be your value system, like, patient centered care, like, or patient centered, perspective, right? That might be a skill that you value and that you need. Those are core skills, right? Then you move up and then they give these job skills. These are more unique to a job, right? Someone in accounting or someone in like accounting or procurement is going to need different skills than your nursing manager on a floor, right? Like there's a difference there, and it's important to pull those skills out. Then at the top you have core, like the unique skills. And I think about unique skills like it's credentialed, CPA, anesthesiology, right? Like those very much like these are very specific and focused up here. In healthcare settings, that gets a little like the those two top pieces merge into each other, one another. But it's just a helpful way to kind of think about like what are skills. Again, don't boil the ocean. Starting at that core level can be helpful, right? And figuring out how AI, artificial intelligence, can begin maybe to pull those out at your organization if you don't know where to start.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, anything else?
Nothing else right now.
Great. Okay. Um, and so we've talked about skilling, we've talked about career pathing. Let's talk a little bit about talent mobility. Um, Now, these aren't exhaustive, but I think the three things we are talking about are very interrelated. I don't think you can have one independently of the other. What I'm trying to show here is that when you look at a mature talent organization, when you look at healthcare in general, when you look at organizations that are going to be able to be agile and thrive as they move towards the future, skilling, career pathing, talent mobility are really, really important. With talent mobility, AI can help you create uh, personalized development plans, right? You can't have this internal mobility if people aren't being developed into the roles that you need to be filled, right? And by evaluating employees' competencies, performance history, and career aspirations, AI can generate personalized career development plans, and these plans can outline steps and training needed to prepare employees for new roles within the organization. Dynamic role adjustment. This is interesting, right? One of the as we begin to move into this next stage of work, independent of the vertical or industry we work in, is that roles are no longer confined to a job description. They're going to have to expand into what do we need right now, right? And I'm not talking about reactionary roles like I need this right now. It is how do you create roles where people are bending and flexing and adjusting, not because it makes the employee feel good, but because it's actually benefiting your organization. So AI can monitor organizational needs and employee performance in real time and suggest role adjustments. So, for example, if a department is expanding on a new project, or this new project expansion comes up, AI can recommend employees already at your organization who'd be a good fit for new roles based on their skills and past performance as it relates to that new project, right? Creating internal mobility, addressing those needs. There's a lot of value in beginning to think through dynamic role adjustment. And finally, mentorship matching. And I thought that this was an interesting one because I think one thing when we think about talent mobility, when people want to move, you can't just have a talent mobility strategy. You have to have a want behind that. Like people need to want to move within the organization. And an important part of that is we know that just studies in general say that people who have like a best friend at work or like a work friend like are more likely to stay around and and stick with the organization. And I like to think of this like, and how can this affect mentorship mapping, right? Healthcare organizations are very large. Mentorship can have a huge lasting value. And AI can match employees with mentors based on their career goals, interests, and areas where they need guidance. Effective mentorship can significantly enhance career development and mobility within the organization as well. So, AI can significantly enhance talent mobility within healthcare by streamlining these processes, providing insights, and facilitating personalized career development. By leveraging AI and talent mobility, healthcare organizations create a fluid and adaptable workforce capable of meeting evolving organizational needs and enhancing employee satisfaction and growth, but also leaning in and becoming a true developing a true agile workforce and leaning into that agility. So again, those 3 points, just AI can help with the skilling strategy, lowering costs around for talent mobility, and creating a career pathing, being strategic around career pathing so that your organization is working for yourselves, for your employees, and for the patients that you serve as well. So that's all I have. Jen, are there any other questions in the chat that I could answer?
I'm not seeing any right now, but if folks have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat
Yeah,
room.
I wanted to save a little bit of time for that for sure.
So this was fantastic.
Oh,
As we start
great.
to think through, um, it's interesting my perspective because we come from the early careerist side of things and all of these, the new generation that's coming into the workforce, they're very familiar with AI, or at least they're more familiar than the other generations that are taking up a bulk of the workforce right now. So it's kind of a give and take, right? How do
Yeah.
we?
Yeah, and and unfortunately, that's not gonna go away anytime soon, you know? Like, you're gonna have to like, what are you gonna flex into? And, like, early career is a great place to like, when I say don't boil the ocean, focusing on your early career professionals is, like, a great way to start this type of work because usually they're a little bit more enthusiastic, they're a little bit more engaged. If you can read the room the right way, you can develop these strategies, and leveraging the technology to ultimately do that is gonna make your job so much easier, but also help you make smarter decisions. Like, what we have at our fingertips ultimately allows you to make much smarter decisions, and, it shouldn't I don't ever want that to get lost, but again, I can't emphasize enough, don't boil the ocean, start small and, yeah, lean into that way.
And scale for sure. We do have a question that came through.
Good.
For organizations that don't have much upward mobility, is there any way for AI to help enhance employee growth?
Yeah, oftentimes at flatter organizations or organizations where people tend to where they you don't have a high attrition or you don't have, like, the rate of change is not quick enough for new roles to be added. Yeah, that's something that's tough. So the upward mobility piece feels like it's inaccessible. What I would actually recommend for organizations that have more of that flat structure where upward mobility is still like people know it's important, but it just can't exist right off the bat. Think about gig work. In the example that I talked about around like starting a new project, make sure that you're rather than creating new roles around it, give people stretch assignments, start a gig. Like I know where I see this work really well is like perhaps someone is in working in an administrative capacity and they might be interested in graphic design and or marketing or something that's a little bit of a stretch, creating the right places so that when a project pops up on someone else's plate, they can bring that person based on their skills just for a gig opportunity, right? So you're creating that upward mobility or you're the feeling of an upward mobility while also giving people a chance to flex, to develop. And then who knows, right? When you do want to open up that role and you do have that flexibility, rather than having to open it up to the outside market, you've got the right, you already know the people who have done that before. Did that answer your question?
It sounded like me, but we'll let them chat and multiple still questions.
Cool. Any other questions? Well, on that note, I do on the page, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. This has been such a pleasure. And Jen, let me know the next time I can stop by. I'd love to talk more with NCHL. And it was a great conversation.
Fantastic. And Joe, if you could send over the slides, I'll make sure participants can get those as well.
Perfect. I can do that.
And learning a bit more in that capacity. But thank you everyone for joining today. Like I mentioned, the recording will be available in the next couple days. Be on the lookout for that. Joe's contact info is there. You can find mine in the email that was sent out. But thanks again. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.